Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and a huge part of why I started this podcast was to enable me to help get information out about situations that directly impacted military families and the military in general. And that is what today's episode is going to comprise. It's got a lot of information. I'm trying to be as factual as possible with the topics and just doing my best. So, as always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. Okay, public service announcement before we get into all of this. This episode is going to cover sensitive topics that may be ones you don't want to have conversations with your kids about right away. Namely, abortion. Yeah, just giving you that heads up. Okay, into today's main thing. There's been a situation going on currently with some nominations for promotions in the military being held up by a senator from Alabama, Senator Tuberville, over a disagreement in something that they're trying to slip into the budget. So what's happening right now is two pieces of legislation, for lack of a better term, one piece of legislation and one procedural point are coming into conflict. There are individuals who are pushing for an amendment to allow the military defense budget to medical defense budget spending to include covering abortions for individuals who live in states that don't allow it to go out of state to have it. And that is something that there are quite a few people who are not on board with for lots of reasons I will address in a minute. And so as to make a stand or a point on this about their displeasure, or this person's displeasure, Senator Tuberville has decided to put a hold on promotions. Now, the way I have seen this portrayed in the media is that these people are not going to be able to be promoted, period, because of this guy, and it's so not fair, and it's going to hurt our country, yada, yada, yada. I have opinions about some of the people who have said some of those things because I don't particularly feel that they care genuinely about the military families. That's my opinion. So I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to address is this. First point, they can vote on these. They can't do a big bulk vote on them if there's a hold. They will have to then set up time to do a long voting procedure and vote individually on every single one of these promotions. So it's not actually a brick wall like it's being portrayed. It can be done. The problem is it's going to take more time to do. It's not convenient. If it is so important to the individuals who are complaining about this hold to get these promotions done, then do it. Schedule the vote and do it. Get it done. It's going to take you more time, but it's not impossible. When I hear people complain and act like it's the end of the world when there's an obvious and clear-cut solution, it makes me think that they want the issue. They don't want the problem solved. They don't actually care about the promotions. They just want to complain. Again, my opinion. But there is another way of handling this. It just takes more time. They need to schedule a vote. They need to schedule a larger block of time for the vote because they'll need to vote on each of these promotions individually. You know what? Not the end of the world. That's your job. Go and do it. Moving on. The other issue, and this is the main complaint for the Senator Tuberville and a lot of other individuals, is that what they are pushing with this inclusion in the defense budget is illegal. There's actually a law against it. So it doesn't make sense for them to include something in the defense medical spending budget that is illegal. Like it or hate it, it's the law. And if you hate the law, change the law. Personally, I have my own feelings on that law. But let's get into what that law is. So, in 1976, as a response to Roe versus Wade, there was a Hyde. It ended up being called the Hyde Amendment, but it is named after the Congress member who proposed it. And it was an amendment stating that, it was from Henry Hyde. Oh yeah, I do have that written down. Yay, I wrote that down. It was in addition to a health bill, and it said that abortion could not be funded by the federal Medicaid money unless the woman's life was endangered. And later it was added the exemption for rape and incest additionally. So basically, the law was passed, including 100 Democrats. More Democrats voted for this law than Republicans at the time. Just so y'all know, stating that no federal money was going to go from Medicaid to abortions, period. Later in the 80s, it was expanded that in addition to Medicaid not being able to fund abortions, Children's Health Services, federal health insurance for military families, the VA, Peace Corps, etc. There was a whole list of other things that would not be allowed to fund abortions. And it was passed by the House to be permanent in 2017, but not the Senate. So basically, it's a little rider. It's an attachment that I think is on. Basically, every time we do a budget, it comes back up, is the gist I was getting. And I spent quite a few hours researching all of this because I wanted to provide you guys with factual information, which is not what I've been hearing. I've been hearing a whole lot of opinions, but I want to give you guys facts because I have the confidence in your ability to form your own opinions. And you know what? Your opinions may not be my opinions. And I think you might be able to guess my opinions based on the way by some of the connotation that is in this episode. Again, I will do my best to be as factual as possible and to give you the best information I could find based on the research I was able to do. I do not claim to be perfect, and I am not telling you what to think. Just know that. So, in regards to this current situation, that's what's going on. And that's where the Hyde Amendment stands as of right now. So, as of right now, it is not legal for the DOD or anyone to say, hey, let's go use some money from XYZ for military medical to fund this. That doesn't exist. It's just as the law, as I understand it, states right now, not allowed. So first things first, they'd have to fix that law. That's just the way it's not good sense to write laws or do things that are illegal when you are the legal representatives of the United States population, like voted. So yeah, you don't like the law, go fix it. That's your job. You want these people to get promoted, schedule the vote. It might take a little longer, but you can do it. That's your job. So that's the basic part of with that where I'm at right now. But as I was doing this research, I came across quite a few interesting things in regards to the Hyde Amendment. And a lot of this stuff in general. And interestingly enough, the president is currently stating that he will push this through. This is a big deal for him. He's not going to sign anything that does not allow the abortions for military, for federal money to be spent on abortions for military personnel to go to other states because they live in a state that does not provide abortions. That's really wordy, but that's basically the concept. And he's saying that if this isn't allowed, I'm not signing the budget. Great. So our entire country is going to default, including defense spending, because you want an ultimatum? Change the law. Get rid of the Hyde Amendment, and then it'll be legal to have this little add-on that you want. Until then, let's just pass the freaking budget without the stupid add-on. I'm sorry. Apologize. Again, trying to just present facts. But interestingly enough, while I was doing all of this research, I found something. President Biden in 1994 wrote a constituent the following: "The government should not tell those with strong convictions against abortion, such as you and I, that we must pay for them." So this is really what it comes down to. There are a lot of people in the country who feel morally conflicted in regards to abortion and do not feel comfortable with their taxpayer money funding these abortions. They're not saying they don't feel someone should be able to go get it if that's what the person wants, but they're saying, I don't want my money going to it. And President Biden himself had that opinion not too long ago. Okay, maybe it's a while ago. I'll give him that. It's been a hot minute. But he's had that opinion before, so it shouldn't be too hard for him to understand that there are people who still feel that way. Second, still against the law. You still have the Hyde Amendment. And here's the next issue. And I really thought I was going to get to more than one topic in this episode, but it's starting to look like I might not. Everyone thinks that defense spending is unlimited. It's not. The defense budget for the United States is argued on every year in Congress. And typically, we don't get more money. Very rarely does Congress provide more money to the defense budget. So typically, if they want to add something to the budget, then it has to come out of the money we've already been allotted. So think of it as a cake. And for every slice you cut out, you've got less cake. And that means that maybe something that money went to before is going to have to be cut. Here is a real world application of this. And this happens all the time to military families. My kids needed a medical test run. And one of my kids had the test first. And it was covered by TRICARE completely. We didn't have to pay anything. Then several months later, another one of my children had to have this medical test done. We were informed that due to the reallocation of TRICARE funds to cover other medical stuff, they were no longer covering this test that my kid needed. And we would have to pay for it out of pocket. Hundreds of dollars out of pocket. Hundreds of dollars. When just a couple of months it was completely covered. So we did. Thankfully, we had savings and we could. We have savings for reasons like this because I don't want my kids to not get the health care or coverage they need. I don't want them to suffer medically because all of a sudden TRICARE decided that stuff they were covering for children or anyone is just not a priority anymore. They're going to put the money somewhere else. I don't know where that money got relocated to. I don't. But that's what happens. And this has happened, I've seen this happen over and over and over again when it comes to medical health programs. They have a certain set amount of money. And when that money gets moved from A to B, then A is not always covered anymore. No matter what the politicians say, that's the reality of the fact. If they're willing to give the military more money to increase government spending, if this is such a pet project of theirs, if they just have to have this, give us more money. I still have moral questions about the ethics of using taxpayer money for this type of a procedure, personally. However, if these Congress members are so dead set on ensuring that they get their pet project into the DoD medical funding because they feel like this is what people in the military really want, then get us the money. Go take it out of some other government program and move it over there. Do it. But they're not. They're not doing that. So this is the main issue with the situation right now. A, it's illegal. B, these promotions are not actually being held up. The Democrats could vote on them if they scheduled the proper amount of time to do so. It would be inconvenient, but it's still possible. And third, where are you going to get the money from? Where are you taking it from? What medical procedures that are currently being covered for military families are going to be cut so that you can have your pet project? I want to know, because it's my health care you're messing with. It's my family that's going to be affected. And I think before we have to deal with the ramifications of their decisions, I'd like to know how it's going to impact my family. That's all I ask. I didn't mean to do 2 hot takes in a row, but that's really kind of what it ended up being. And really, when it comes down to it, we just want more information. So often, it feels like Congress and politicians in general use the military to get attention, to make a point, to throw a tantrum, without stopping to think of the long-term ramifications and consequences of the policies and procedures they are trying to enact upon the military families themselves. Maybe the majority of military families support this. Maybe they don't. Do you know? Has anybody even polled them? Has anybody asked? What are we going to lose? I want to know. So really what this all comes down to is a right or wrong, whatever you think, you can think. I just want more information. I wish we could be more upfront with military families about the decisions that are being made that directly impact their lives before these decisions are going to be made. But it feels like we only find out about a lot of these decisions after the fact. So, you know what, Congress? Go for it. You want to push this? Fine. Repeal, get rid of the Hyde Amendment. Have fun with that. You do that, then explain to us what we're going to have to give up for this new coverage. And then, if you don't want us to have to give up anything, tell us where the money's going to come from. Because if it's coming from our current medical budget for the military, that does mean we're sacrificing something. So, I don't think that's a whole lot to ask. I don't think it's too much to ask. I think that is a pretty fair request. Again, you probably could tell how I feel about certain aspects of this conversation due to opinions that were presented, but hopefully you got the facts you needed to form your own opinions. That's what I really want. So, these are not always my favorite episodes, but I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had. And that's why That's why I have this podcast. Sometimes it's fun conversations I want to have, and sometimes it's the awkward ones that we need to have. So that was this week. Still trying to get some other fun things put together, working on a few collabs and whatnot. But overall, thank you all for all of the listeners who come every week and check in on all of this stuff and give me feedback. And additionally, if there are topics or things that you'd like me to research and dive into, please let me know. I do try to cover those to the best of my ability. I don't get to everything. I'm balancing this podcast with my personal life. I am a mom of 4. And I do already volunteer in my community quite a bit with my congregation and other organizations. So it's a balancing act, but I try to do what I can. So all that said, I hope you have a fabulous week. And as always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you are listening to Life of a Military Wife.